Good afternoon, everyone. Please let me know if you're hearing me. Good afternoon, everyone. Please let me know if you're hearing me. Great. All right. Somebody said yes, they are hearing me. So I have been, first of all, let me apologize. I have been having some technical difficulties. All right. So we're not going to do a paper today since we're having so many issues. We're not going to do a paper, but I wanted to ensure that you understand what your paper entails, how it will be set up, tips that you can use in your exam in order to maximize your time and in order to get your paper done in an effective manner so that you're able to do well. Okay? All right. So to begin, I'm going to actually be writing because I want you to kind of see what I'm talking about, right? So to begin, we're going to look at the amount of time that we have, first of all. So for paper two, you have paper two on Thursday. For paper two, you have 2.5 hours. So for that 2.5 hours, you are going to be required to do 4 full questions. So while I'm talking, guys, if you have any questions at all, you can type them in the comment section and I will and respond to you as soon as I see it. So you have 2.5 hours. So 2.5 hours will give you 150 minutes. So for that 150 minutes, you have 4 questions to complete. Now, these are compulsory questions, meaning you have to do everything. So out of these 4 questions now, you have section A, which is your map work section. And we will allot more time to the map work because we know map work takes much of your time on the exam. Section B, you have natural systems. We'll talk about that in a second. Section C, we have human systems. And in section D, we have human environment systems. So it's a mixture. All right, so section A, your map work. Well, first of all, you can start anywhere on your exam that you desire. Your exam will have space for you to write. So it's a booklet that you're going to be getting with these 4 questions in it, and you will be required to complete everything. Therefore, you can start anywhere in the paper that you desire. Now, how are you going to break up your time for the exam? So you have 150 minutes, right? For section B, All right, I noticed that we got, it seemed as if we got kicked out a little. So I'm seeing some of your comments. Yes, I am going to break each section down into the topics that is required. I just want you to understand the timing first. If you're hearing me now, let me know that you're hearing me now. So I'll just try to recap what I just said a little. All right, somebody says it's good now. Thank you, Shady. Nice name. All right, good, good. So, we have 4 sections. So we have section A, B, C, and D, right? So each of these sections is valued at 25 marks, but we're not going to allot the same amount of time for each question because, well, what's happening now? Okay. All right. So somebody says what comes under the heading of Caribbean islands. So number one, you have to know the name of each Caribbean island to be able to actually label it, the map. When they said Caribbean islands, I'm going to try to pull up the CXC topics. Hold on, you won't see it, but I will. Hang on. I want to see the exact area that it is mentioned under. Okay. Under human systems, islands of the Caribbean. Remember that it is one question, right? So it is one human system question that is coming. So whatever that one question is, it is going to take in all of these 4 parts that are there. So more than likely, islands of the Caribbean in this little section here, only as a part of the question, relating to natural resources, it is probably asking you, number one, to identify some Caribbean islands. Maybe they have something like A, B, C, D, and they ask you to identify the names of those Caribbean islands. Or it could be a case where they ask you to identify Caribbean islands that have particular natural resources in them. So you have to know all of the names of the Caribbean islands. You have to know where the natural resources are located in the Caribbean islands. So I know that we have people here from different islands. So please, to help each other out, you can go ahead and just type your country, type the natural resources that you have, just so since we're only using voice and chat, so that somebody else will be able to learn from your particular country since we are just doing this. Okay, so it is natural resources that is available or found in your particular island. There are some of the islands that are kind of easy to remember based on their shape. Of course, you are going to know your own island that you live in. You can try to memorize the islands that are next to yours. Use an acronym or something that helps you to memorize the islands that are next to yours. Some persons use the shape of, well, you can just use the shape of Jamaica. One of them is shaped like a butterfly. One of them is shaped like a finger that is pointing. So you can use those, create shapes in your own mind based on what they look like, and then you use those to actually memorize the names of the islands and what each island has. Okay? I'm trying to look at your questions again to say, yes, you are required to study everything. Remember, the topics that you got, these are for paper 2 topics, only paper 2. So paper 1 is still coming. Paper 1 is still coming with everything. So since paper 1 is coming with everything, you still need to study everything. So I did a video already on, I don't remember exactly what it is called. Maybe it says geography examination tips or something like that. That is a breakdown of the paper 2 exam. So the same way I was just about to break down the, no. That's a breakdown of the paper 1 exam, sorry. So the same way that I was just about to break down the paper 2 exam for you, the paper 1 exam, I did that last year for the students who are going to be doing paper 1 only. So it explains to you how many questions you're getting, how much time you have for each question, how much time you should spend on each question. It tells you the things that you should use to assist you when you're reading the questions. It tells you how to eliminate your responses. It tells you basically the setup of the paper. So the first part of paper 1, it requires skills. So there's a lot of map work in the first part of paper 1. Skill questions go all the way up to probably 20 something, number 20 something. Then after that you will start having other questions that require memory rather than skill. So you can just look at that video and it will give you the full breakdown. I see somebody else mentioning crash course. Yes. So there is a crash course for everything already. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. Then you look in the playlist section. You will see a playlist for geography live streams. All of the live streams that I've ever done, I just put all of them together there. You will see a playlist for geography map skills. So all of the map skills that have been done, you can watch through that as well. There's a crash course on map work, crash course on natural systems, crash course on human systems. Everything is there. So you can watch all of them to cover the areas that you know are already coming on the exam. Yes, I think I'm saving the live. If it remember, I can't see anything because of the issues that we're having here. If it turns out that it's not being saved and it's not going to be uploaded, then I will just go ahead and make a video and try to upload it before you go off for your exams on Thursday. All right. Yes, Daniel, I am going to, well, I've already done the video on soil formation. It's just for me to upload it. So that can be uploaded later tonight or probably tomorrow. I know that you all have English tomorrow. So while you're out, don't worry, I will work on it so that by the time you're back home, you will have some additional geography information. Okay? I think there was another question. All right, somebody asked about industries in the Caribbean. Industries, so the same resources that you spoke about initially, these are all tied into each other. The same resources that you spoke about initially, that is why it is one question. So in my head, I am picturing the question to be, remember that this is just in my head now, based on the topics that are there, I'm picturing the question to be something like part A, asking you to identify Caribbean islands, maybe 4 of them. and you would name those Caribbean islands. Then for part B, asking you to probably identify natural resources that are found in these Caribbean islands. Maybe you're asked to define natural resources. Then they probably ask you to differentiate between renewable and non-renewable resources or something like that for you to explain, probably a 4 marks or something. And then relating to industries in the Caribbean now, the industries in the Caribbean are related to the resources that you have available. Think about it. You can't have an industry set up for a resource that you don't possess, for a resource that you do not have. So we do have primary resources, secondary, and tertiary. In the Caribbean, for tertiary, we look towards, as our service industry, we look towards tourism. So that is mostly what we talk about. So don't be surprised if you see something or a question, a part of the question relating to tourism in that section there. You can also see agriculture in that question there, anything at all relating to agriculture. So you have to pay attention to that as well. It can be questions about large scale farming, small scale farming, comparing both of those. It can be questions relating to selecting one of the industries, identifying factors that influence the location of the particular industry. It can be questions relating to that. All right. For the person who is asking about past papers, there are already so many past papers, but I will still continue to do some. Remember to just check out the playlist. You will see all of the geography videos there. There are 3 different playlists for geography. There's geography past papers, there's geography live streams, and then there's geography map skills. So you have 3 different sets of things that you can play. The thing about studying for your exam, especially now, you should have already studied, but you kind of want to be hearing the information, sort of like a recap. So you can use the playlist, just play it, do whatever else it is that you're required to do at home while you're washing dishes, while you're cleaning your room, while you're packing your bag. Play it so that you can hear the information. You can look for the specific sections that you are expecting on your exam. You can look for those specific sections in the live stream and in the crash courses, and then you play those. Or you can just go right through. You still have some time for your paper 1, so you can come back after. We will talk about paper 1 after, right? Paper 2 now and the topics. So we kind of just topic. First section that we got from CSEC. We jumped over map reading. We'll come to that eventually. We jumped over natural systems. For natural systems, I've already done a video on formation of rocks. So that is already on the channel. You just need to look in the geography playlist and you will see it there. I did a video on weathering as well. Look in the playlist, you will see it there. I also did a video on mass wasting, and I have one on the formation of soils that I am going to upload later in the night. So section B for natural systems would have already been covered. Still, I want you to remember that you have to study everything because you still have paper 1 to do. And we don't know how they're going to mix the questions even though they have given us these topics. So these are just guidelines. So don't just stick on the exact words that you see there. Read outside of that. Okay, so because for example in weathering they gave us a topic weathering, but weathering is very broad. It can be that they're gonna ask you about, it can be that they're gonna ask you something relating to limestone formation. It can be that they're going to ask you several other things relating to weathering. For mass wasting, it can be that they're going to ask you about landslides, and landslides itself is very big. So you have to take everything into consideration, even though the topic has been given to you. For human systems, I feel like you're not hearing me again. I'm not sure. Okay, great. Somebody's hearing. All right. So we were at human systems, yes. So we spoke about islands of the Caribbean, natural resources in the Caribbean. It's from those natural resources that we would also talk about renewable and non-renewable resources as well. So it is just for you to look into those specific sections, because they can ask you so many different questions just from the headings that they gave you. Relating to industries, pay attention to factors influencing the location of particular industries. That is something that requires explanation, and based on the setup where they have industries in the Caribbean, it could suggest that it will be a question where you need to explain something. And I feel like renewable and non-renewable resources, I feel like you're going to need to differentiate between them and give an example or something like that. So you just have to explore as wide as possible where those topics are concerned. So your teachers would have already gone through the entire syllabus with you. What you can do, use the information from your teacher where they would have covered each of these topics. Then you pick up the textbook. For paper 2, you just look at these specific sections that they asked, but you have to keep your mind open. Because they're talking about industries, they can also ask you questions relating to tourism, effects of tourism, tourism on the natural environment. They can ask you about coral reef. They can ask you about effects of human activities on coral reef. They can ask you about factors influencing the formation of coral reef. So even though you see industries alone, it's very, very, very broad. Very, very, very broad. So every industry that someone mentioned in the chat, in the syllabus specifically, they asked us to look at fishing, forestry. It said fishing or forestry, tourism, bauxite, and oil or natural gas, and something else that I can't remember. Right? So the syllabus is also available online. It is also on my blog. So you can look for it. Just look for the syllabus. Look for this section that says industries in the Caribbean. The thing is, you cannot get something that is not in the syllabus. So look at the syllabus, look at that particular area where they talk about industries in the Caribbean, and look at what it is that they expect you to know, what it is that they expected your teacher to teach you. So look at those, and then you use that to formulate questions for yourself. The good thing about the syllabus is that these objectives, they are basically questions. So if the objective says that you should outline the formation of, outline the formation of coral reef, then you can just convert that into a question for yourself where you outline the formation of coral reef. So every objective that is on the syllabus is a question that you can answer. So I normally encourage students to use the syllabus when they are revising. It's like a full set of questions that you can use to ensure that you're prepared for your exam. Because if you can answer every question that is on the syllabus, then you're good to go. All right. So that would be for the human systems section. Let me know if you have any other questions relating to the human systems section. If you probably want to ask me if something falls under human systems or something like that, you can go ahead and type it in the chat. For human environment systems now, this section is relating to the natural environment, humans, and how they interact with each other, how humans interact with the natural environment. So it can take in information from human systems as well as natural systems. So in human environment systems now, they ask that you pay attention to natural disasters and that you pay attention to disaster preparedness. So in one of the crash courses that I did already, I did the entire disaster preparedness cycle. So the preparedness cycle, in my head, it is a fitting question for what is at human environment systems. So it is something that you should pay attention to. It requires a little explanation, but once you know how to draw the cycle, it helps you to remember everything else. So that is already in one of the crash courses that I did, so you can just pay attention to that. Natural disasters. Think about the effects of natural disasters. We have different natural disasters that we pay attention to in our syllabus. So you can think about flooding, you can think about earthquakes, you can think about volcanic activity. Volcanic activity is fresh in our minds at the moment. I don't know if the paper was set before the volcanic eruption. If it wasn't set before, then I'm thinking that it would be on it. Either way, just to that. So look at volcanoes, the effects of volcanoes. Remember that in this section, we're really talking about the human and the natural environment together. So we're talking about interaction here. So more than likely, it is about effects and causes, etc. So look at volcanoes, look at earthquakes, look at the effects of hurricane, effects of flooding, that sort of thing. It is very, very good for you to think of at least one disaster that happened in a particular Caribbean country, and then you think up how they prepared for the disaster, how they managed the disaster, what they did before the disaster, after the disaster, how they recovered, etc. So all of that would fall into the disaster preparedness cycle. So you can use the cycle. Remember to look in the crash course for it. It's also in your textbook, but the crash course has some amount of explanation that I did relating to that. So you can think of a disaster that is in your particular country that you know about, and then you link it specifically to the disaster preparedness cycle. So it's like a little project. So you would already know, let us say you are in Jamaica and you are doing landslide, for example, or you're doing hurricane, for example, then you can think of a particular hurricane that happened at whatever time. So you have specific detailed information. Then you think about what happened before the disaster, what happened during, and then what happened after, what international agencies assisted with the recovery process, what local agencies assisted with the recovery process. So in each of the Caribbean countries, you may have a different name for your recovery services that you have. I'm from Jamaica, so we have what we call ODPEM, Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Think of the Caribbean, think of other Caribbean organizations that would have assisted where this is concerned, where disasters are concerned. You have CDEMA, CDEMA. They assist with disasters in the Caribbean region as well. So you can look at those, look at other international bodies that would have assisted in the recovery. Relating to the map reading. So for map reading, oh wow, you can't hear me now? Okay. Oh, you're hearing me now. Okay. All right, good. So if you have any questions about the topics or the sections, the explanation of the sections, then you can let me know so I can try to respond to them. Now, relating to map work. Map work has it kind of has a layout. If you look at some of the past papers, enough past papers, you will see how the questions progress. So the first part of map work, normally you would have, they may ask you to find six-figure grid reference. They ask you for direction. They ask you for compass bearing. 1, 2, 3. They ask you for measuring distance. It can be curved line or straight line. Sometimes you may see cross section on it, or even if you don't see cross section, there is something there that would require you to utilize your skills of contour lines. So generally you have six-figure grid reference, you have six-figure grid reference, right? So all of these would have been in your map work section. For the bottom part of the map work question, it requires you to utilize other knowledge. They may ask you to describe drainage. So there are specific things that you can be asked depending on what type of map it is. So they can ask about drainage, they can ask about communication, they can ask about agriculture, they can ask about, not agriculture, land use. It doesn't have to be agriculture, it can be land use. So anything relating to how the so some persons are hearing and some persons are not hearing. So I'm not sure when you're hearing, when you're not hearing, and then, So I can try to sort this out and then I get back to you. Kayla, about your question if you use pens or pencils on the paper. Usually, I would encourage geography students to put their drawings neatly in pen, but on your exam, don't do it. In your exam, use pencil. Draw it neatly. And the thing with I don't know if you're hearing me, but I'm just gonna say, the thing with drawing is that we don't all draw nicely. Some of us cannot draw to save our lives, and it's true. What you should do for everything that you draw, label it properly, because you might draw something that to you it looks like a volcano, but to the other person or to the person who is marking your paper, it looks like a tree. And they don't know what is going on there, so you may lose the marks. So I suggest that you just label every single thing that you draw so that they know what it is that what you're really trying to show. Every drawing that you do as well, ensure that every drawing that you do, it has a border, just like you would do in your geography classes at school. If you are asked to do a sketch map, for your sketch map, they can ask you to do a sketch map. For the section where they ask you where it says Islands of the Caribbean and resources, they can ask you to do a sketch map right there. They can ask you something like, draw a sketch map of a named Caribbean island and something like indicate where a particular resource is found, something like that. They can ask you to do that. So you would need to draw your Caribbean island, ensure that you have your border, ensure that you have all of your map elements, put in your title, put in your north arrow, put in your little scale, and then you draw the island that you are most familiar with. And then you highlight the specific area for the natural resource that they ask you for, just in case. That is a possibility based on the questions that are there as well. So if you live in Jamaica, draw Jamaica, because you have been drawing it from you were in primary school. If you live in Trinidad, I am assuming as well that from primary school you would have been drawing Trinidad, so draw your country. Sometimes, and I don't want to say this, but just be vigilant. You may just realize that on your paper already, or on your map, the big map already, you may realize that you already have a country there. So maybe you can, yeah. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I think that is it. So you know where to find all of the information. I will repeat it for the persons who were not on. So there is you would just need to subscribe to the channel. You would need to go to the playlist. Then you would see 3 different playlists for geography. So you have geography past papers. It has paper 1 and paper 2. You have the geography live streams where other persons are asking their questions, maybe questions that you would probably have. There are crash courses inside the live streams, and then there is map work. So it takes you from probably grade 9 map work. So it gives you all of the basics: 6-figure grid reference, contour lines, cross section, identifying slopes, angular bearing, all of those things. So all of that is already in the map work section. I can't say, Leah, I really don't know. I have no clue. They can ask you to draw any amount of diagrams that they want. And sometimes they may not ask you to draw a diagram, but a diagram can help you to get more marks. So you can still draw diagrams if you choose to. So there may be some questions that they ask you to give an explanation for. Maybe they didn't specifically ask for a diagram, but you can still draw a diagram to assist you in your response. Let me just say this. A lot of students, I realize they make this mistake. Sometimes the question may say, With the aid of a diagram, describe the formation of soils, right? If it says something like that, with the aid of a diagram, it means that the diagram is supposed to help with your explanation. It doesn't mean that you must just draw a diagram alone. And it doesn't mean that you must just write alone. It says with the aid of a diagram. So you're using the diagram to assist you or to aid you in answering your question.